What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going Shack podcast. I'm your host, Chris Duarte. I just realized I've never said my name. I had a whole introduction video, never said my name. My name's Chris. We're gonna get back into it. I have a beefy, meaty episode to dig into this episode or this week. So let's just jump straight into it. So we're gonna be talking about stoicism, right? Stoicism. And following Christ, and if you could follow Stoic principles while following Christ, we're just gonna get into it, right? So, what is Stoicism? If y'all don't know what Stoicism is if y'all haven't heard of people refer to themselves or other people as Stoic or Stoics, it's a school of philosophy founded in around 300 BC, give or take, right? And it really flourished during the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire, this is the time period when Jesus was walking the earth, when the disciples were, starting the church. It was around this time that Stoicism was really popping off, if you will, where many people were clinging on to it, um, following those principles, and so on. So Christianity took root in the first century, right? That's when the disciples, like I said, were first starting the church, and it was the same time period that Stoicism was really flourishing, where everyone was trying to do. And four fundamental values of Stoicism, which we're gonna get into, is courage, being able to face adversity regardless of how you feel; justice, which is fair, honesty, and just for everyone, every party included; temperance, or in other words, self discipline, right? And wisdom, pursue learning and understanding, always aiming to grow and improve yourself. Those are four core values rooted in Stoicism. So, the way I describe it, the way people probably describe it as well, is in summary, it's just dealing with the cards you're given, right? And making the best out of it. So, Stoics are really big controlling what you can control and don't even worry about what you can't because there's no point. You can't control it, right? And they say that happiness comes from within. Well, we're gonna get into it, right? Because there's a lot of things that resemble Christianity, that resemble Christ, but it's kind of skewed. So it's very similar but very different. That's what we're really gonna get into because I've been following, not even following. Well, I guess, I've been following Stoic principles for the past like 6 years without even knowing. And I remember I was talking to my brother in the kitchen one time, and he just kind of interrupts me. He's like, "Bro, you know what Stoicism is?" I'm like, "Never heard of her." And he's like, "Nah, dude, you're a Stoic. Like the way you're talking right now, you're a Stoic. I know it." And I'm like, cool, I guess I'm a stoic, yay. And I did a little research on everything, and it was like that's like probably a couple years ago, 2022, maybe, I don't know, around that time. And I was like, I kind of fell in love with it, right? Just because it has some good values, it has some good principles, it's a good way to live life. But the question we're going to be talking about today is, can you follow stoicism? Can you be a stoic and follow Christ, follow Jesus? Are they two conflicting, whatever you want to call them, fates? I guess I wouldn't call stoicism a fate, but it's a lifestyle. Are they two conflicting lifestyles? That's what we're gonna talk about, right? So first, I want to start in Matthew 6:24, right? It says you cannot serve two masters, and in that passage, it's directly talking about money, but it applies to everything, right? If you are, for me personally, and let me use myself as an example. There's been many times when I would smoke weed over go to church, smoke weed over pray, smoke weed over fellowship. And it's like there would be times when it was dragging me away from Christ. And but then I would say, "Hey, Jesus, I'm trying to follow you, but I'm serving weed, right? I'm not serving God." So it's like it's just gonna be two conflicting masters. You can't do it. It says right there, you cannot serve two masters. So you have to ask yourself, what am I serving? It could be anything. It could be social media. It could be lust. It could be weed. It could be alcohol. It could be anything, right? Anything that you are serving, that you are essentially making an altar for. If you're making time for everything, and you're disregarding other aspects, especially from Christ, like I was doing. I was taking time away from church to smoke. I was taking time away from fellowship, hanging out with some people from church to smoke. And it was like, it was not, I was trying to serve two masters and it just wasn't working. And so it's a great principle to live by. Stoicism, I'm talking about great principles to live by, but it doesn't reach the truth. It doesn't give you the source, right? So that's kind of the gist. Stoics believe that the universe and nature is the divine power, right? That the universe is in control, not God. Sometimes they refer to the universe as God, but they don't believe in a higher being. They believe in a higher power, which is the universe, nature, the cosmics, whatever you want to call it. And so the goal of Stoicism is to be in control of your own life, is to live a fruitful life on this earth. It's not that they don't believe in the afterlife. They just aim to control what they can for themselves to live the best life they can and not worry about what they can't. Right. So I want to get into rationality and wisdom. I'm kind of going fast because, like I said, man, it's a beefy episode. I got like 4 pages, so I don't know how long it's going to be. So I've mentioned this before, Jehoshaphat, the battle with Jehoshaphat. And he did the irrational thing. If you're not familiar, I'll probably put it up on the screen. But he did the irrational thing, the quote unquote irrational thing. No quotations. It was stupid, right? If you look at the decision that he made regarding the circumstances that he was in, it was a stupid decision. But we know that it's not really stupid. It's stupid from a worldly perspective, I'll say. And God designs us, it's funny, God designs us one way, and then he says, follow my way instead. Like for men, he designs us with lustful eyes. There's no question about that, right? And we have to be disciplined in ourselves to look away or not look at all, and to say, if you're in a relationship, but like as a man, like no one teaches us really, like, hey, when you see a nice woman with a nice shape, look at her. No one taught us that, but it's just like, it's just nature. It's just naturally how we're made. But Jesus says, follow my way instead. So it's just, I want to just, it's funny, right? But as far as rationality goes, there are going to be times when God calls us to do irrational things that are conflicting with our rational minds, right? I mentioned this in my testimony episode where God was really calling me to just quit, where he was just saying, hey, listen, you don't have a job lined up. I know you're worried about paying and everything you got to pay for, but just quit. Just trust me, but just quit. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But y'all saw what happened, right? He provided with no missed days of work. So it's just like when he calls us to do something, our rationality mindset conflicts with it so often. That's going to happen so many times. So it's not about rationality. If we were rational, listen, man, like me, for me, I've felt his presence. I have heard him speak. But for other people who haven't, it's like it's a really hard concept to understand that he is real. God is real. Jesus is the truth. I know that 1,000% based on my personal experiences. But for someone who hasn't, it's kind of tough to say, yeah, I believe that. I've never seen the guy, but I believe it. So it's like I said, the rational part of our mind conflicts with God, conflicts with irrationality. Stoics, however, and really quick, it's a constant battle with flesh. It's a constant battle of denying our flesh, denying our will, denying our desires to follow Christ. But for Stoicism or Stoics, they skip this. They skip the whole part of seeking God for their wisdom, for their rationality. They are so self-sufficient on their own experiences, on their own mind, on their own rational thoughts. For instance, going back to that work example, if someone were to tell me, hey man, don't quit, I mean, hey man, just quit, you'll figure it out, just quit. It's gonna work out, just quit. A Stoic would be like, no, that's not the smart thing. I'm gonna get another job first. And so that's just the difference between that, right? They are very self-reliant on themselves, not anyone else, compared to Christians who were dependent on God. And so Stoics, they get their wisdom from their own understanding, the world, their experiences, other people, whatever it may be. People in Christ should should get their wisdom from God, right? Proverbs 2:3-6, which leads to Proverbs 9:10. We could pull that up really quick. Proverbs. So Proverbs 2:3-6. I'm gonna just read the whole thing. So starting from verse 1, 2, 1. My son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, listening closely to wisdom and directing your heart to understanding. Furthermore, if you call out to insight and lift your voice to understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it like hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and discover the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. Right? And then, like I said, if we just go over to 9, verses 9 and 10, then you will understand righteousness, justice, and integrity, for wisdom will enter your heart. So we get our wisdom from God. So how does that look like? It's not just like a boom, and now we're just the wisest person on earth. We're not Solomon, right? So Stoics get their wisdom from their experiences. They get their wisdom from the world. Christ or Christians get their wisdom from God and the Bible with scripture, fellow Christians. So what's the difference? If both groups, we'll call them, end up in the same thing, they both get wisdom. What's the difference? They both self-benefit, right? They both reach an understanding of wisdom. What's the matter, right? So first of all, I want to say the book of Proverbs is known as the book of wisdom. So I recommend everyone reads that. I need to read it myself. I read like bits and pieces of it every once in a while, but I just really want to like read it, you know. But we're gonna talk about the key differences right now of Stoicism, Christianity, my bad. So obviously, other than the source, right? We get our source is God. Their source is themselves, essentially the world. It's the motivation and the goal, right? So Stoics aim to achieve a virtuous life here on earth, to live the best life that they can here on earth. Whereas Christians aim to live righteous in accordance with God, leading to eternal salvation, right? And it's not a some people probably do. I'm sure many people have this mindset where it's like they only follow Christ because they want to get to heaven. You could try fooling God, that ain't gonna work, right? But it's the motivation and the goal, right? So they strictly are selfish. Stoics, they're selfish, to put it blunt. And the key difference, it drives their whole lifestyle. It's the motivation of operation in their life. So Christians love and they love because we are loved. We have received grace, so we give grace. We have been forgiven, so we forgive, right? Stoics, I mean, I'm not gonna put like a blanket statement overall, but generally speaking, we're gonna get into it. So it's a very selfish lifestyle compared to a very selfless lifestyle. Stoics and Christians, right? But I want to talk about justice and temperance, self-discipline. Stoics search for justice through rationality beyond the law, even not even in the court of law, just justice in general, for fairness, compassion, and this is it reflects Christianity almost. Like I said, it's very similar, but it's skewed. We're called to turn our right cheek. We are called to forgive. We are called, or we're told that vengeance is the Lord's. We are not supposed to seek justice. And I have a hot opinion. Many people, many Christians are for the death penalty, I'm not. I'm against it. And you could say the most heinous thing. I'll say the most heinous thing. A child predator rapes 16 children, gets locked up. Do they deserve the death penalty? I don't think that's our role to say yes, to say no. Do I believe they should be locked up? Sure, absolutely. Keep them in a cage, right? Don't put them out into the world again. But to take someone's life and just speed up the process, get them to, I don't think that's our role. I think we are called to forgive heinous crimes like that as well. And so that's a very hard thing to do, first of all. Like I said, I'm going to use the most heinous example I could think of. But we're called to forgive. I don't, and this is just kind of a little sidebar. I mean, it kind of goes in tie with this with justice, but I don't think that's our role. And I'll receive the comments about whatever. Many people are for it. I don't think it's just vengeance is not ours. Justice is not ours. And who's to say? Imagine if we gathered up back then and said, you know what, this guy Saul, we got to kill him. He's killing Jews, he's persecuting us. Let's kill this guy Saul. We would have never gotten Paul, right? So it's like, I don't think it's our role to kill people. Self defense, whole other topic. Protect yourself, that's in the Bible, I'm sure. And so, speaking about fairness, if things were fair, we'd be on the cross. Like Christianity, it's not about fairness, it's not about justice, it's about grace, it's about love. And that's a very key, vast difference between Stoicism and Christianity. Stoics aim to be in control. We give that control to God, right? So that's another one. And Stoics, as far as discipline goes, Stoics are very heavy on discipline, very heavy on discipline, and growing. They always aim for self improvement for themselves. Like I said, it's a very selfish lifestyle. I hadn't like when I was chopping up this episode, I was just realizing how selfish Stoics are, bro. But anyways, the fundamental virtue for inner harmony, for peace and freedom, is through self discipline. And self discipline is a great thing to have. Christians need self discipline too. Following Christ absolutely requires discipline. Submitting to God requires discipline. Giving control to Him is something Stoics frown upon. They want to be in control of their own life. We as Christians follow God. Like we let Him lead our lives. And again, like I said, it's not to take away our free will. It's not that we're just brain dead robots. Yes, God, wherever you take us. No, it's like it's a relationship. It's a process between us and Him, personal. But we cannot follow Christ without self-discipline. It can't happen. No one's gonna force us. We need discipline to open our Bible. We need discipline to read our Bible. We need discipline for fellowship, to go be in fellowship with other Christians. We need discipline to pray. No one's gonna force us. Not your mommy, not your daddy, not your friends, not your people you go to church with, not God Himself. He's not gonna force you to do anything because if He did, that wouldn't be free will, right? And so it's a very tricky concept when it comes to that because free will, obedience, it's very different. We'll probably get into that. But we need to be disciplined to be obedient. There's just no way, there's no other way to explain it. You can't just expect to say, you know what, God, let me follow you. And that's it. No, it's discipline. So both Stoics and Christians require discipline. But the difference is the motivators and the reasons behind that discipline. Like I said, Stoics, I'm gonna say this so many times, they're selfish. They're selfish. So now I want to talk about the universe. I want to talk about the divine powers that we believe in, that they believe in. Stoics believe that the universe is divine and in control, right? They don't disregard a higher power. And Christians attribute that force to God. We know that force to be God. They say it's the cosmics, it's the universe, and they just react. They react to it and they act around, right? For instance, and this again is so similar. Like I was having so much trouble deciphering the difference between this because it's so similar. Like let me give you an example. A Stoic is driving to an event that they were looking forward to for months. So excited, their tire pops, and now they have a flat. Instead of getting mad, they say, you know what? They believe that everything happens for a reason, that the universe does not make mistakes, that it is a organized, not being, but power, and everything happens for a reason. So they will probably say, you know what? Instead of getting mad, I'm gonna try to fix this if I can. I'm gonna try to go to the event. If I can't, I miss it. Whatever. Other people, I'm sure will start throwing the tantrum on the side of the road because they were so looking forward to it. But Christians, as well, they say, you know what, God, let me try to fix this, or whatever it may be. They don't lose their temperance, they don't lose control, they're not frustrated. So what's the difference between that? Like I said, it's the source. Stoics focus on acceptance, right? So this is happening right now, I gotta accept it, let me deal with it. That's a stoic mindset, and that's a good mindset to have, but not alone. So Christians focus on submission to his will and obedience to him, to God, rather than just accepting what is, rather than just saying, this is what's going on, this is the situation we're in, right? So it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't take away our free will, rather it highlights our faith to him, to Christ. When we are able to be in a rocky, bad, horrible situation and say, God, praise, that's not us, right? That's not being self-reliant on us. Like Stoics, they just try to fix whatever it is going on and get moving. Stoics believe that happiness comes from within. This is tricky, right? Because it's tricky because Christians, you could also say happiness comes from within in a way, not because of us, because of God, but it's not because of outside circumstances, right? We could be in the best or the worst situations. We're saying hallelujah to Jesus. You can, it's, it reflects like Stoics, it reflects Christianity. But Stoics understand suffering is gonna happen. They try to avoid it, but they also understand it's gonna happen. Emotions are gonna come, and they try to avoid it. They believe that suffering also comes from within. That if you're suffering, if you feel some type of way, that's you reacting to the outside circumstances that you can't control. So just stop suffering. Just stop being sad, stop being mad, whatever. And that's the key difference right there, because Christians, we embrace the suffering, right? We could look at James 1, 2, 3. Let me pull that one up. Consider a great joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you experience various trials, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And we even go on to verse 4. And let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature, complete, lacking nothing. So we embrace it. We use suffering, we use trials as an opportunity to lean on God. We are dependent. We are not self reliant like Stoics. And so Christians were also able, like I said, we're also able to find peace and joy through the suffering. But the motivating reason behind it is very different. The reasons, they're not the same. Stoics are selfish. The Stoics, they're selfish. But Christians, we embrace the suffering because we see farther down, if that makes sense. I don't know. Stoics are just, they're living for this life. We know that this life is gonna pass. It's just that simple. Stoics try to avoid suffering. They try to have, a chama mindset, like a stoic face, a stoic mindset for inner peace. For inner peace. They try to live a peaceful life the best that they can. We as Christians find peace regardless of anything, just like Stoics, regardless of any outside circumstance. But the difference is they want peace here on earth. We are at peace because we have Christ, because the battle is already won, because this life is temporary, because we know what comes after this. And to finish, Stoicism reflects Christian values, but the source is not the same. The source is self versus God, to put it like that. The reasons are not the same. Again, it's self versus obedience and love and grace. The end goal is not the same either. They want to live a perfect, not even perfect, but a peaceful, virtuous life here on earth. And when they pass, like I said, they don't believe in anything else. That's just it for them. So stoicism gives nuggets and byproducts of Christ, but ultimately it leads you astray. It doesn't give you the source, which is Christ. It doesn't give you the living water, which is Christ. So can you follow both stoicism and Christ? No, you can't. No. Many stoic principles are of Christ. It's just like that. And it's funny because, like I said, around that time when it first started flourishing was with the time when the disciples were starting the church. They were writing the books of the Bible after Jesus' crucifixion. So many people attribute stoicism for Christian values. Brother, God has been here before the Roman Empire. He was here before the disciples. He was here before Jesus was on earth. He created the universe. These principles have been in Christ, and Stoicism simply snatched it up and said, "Hey, we have an idea, Stoicism, follow us." And many people do, and many people have. But God is at the center. He's always been the source. So anyone who may follow Stoic principles, I would say go to the source. I would say skip Stoicism and go straight to the source, which is Christ. Myself included. Like when I start, like I said, I never started following Stoics. It was simply just this is how I live my life. It was very rational. It was very disciplined, but it wasn't of Christ. It was just how I live my life. So if you have to get to the root, you have to get to the source, which is Jesus, which is Christ, which is following God. And so that's pretty much it. I try to wrap it up under 30 minutes. We're just at the mark pretty much. I thought it was gonna be longer. I talk fast, so maybe that's why. Um, and so I want to know what y'all think about this because it's like I said, it's Stoicism is so similar, like as far as principles go, it's so similar to Christianity, but it's so different at the same time. Can you follow Stoicism and reach Christ? No, absolutely not. There is no. They literally say God's not real. It's the universe and the cosmos. Can you follow as a Christian? Can you follow Stoic principles? I would say you most likely already are if you're following Christ. So, but anyways, that's going to be it for this episode. It was, for me, it felt fast, but we're at 30 minutes already. But I want to hear what y'all have to say. Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I have no idea what next episode is going to be. I'm stressing about that. I'm stressing. But take care. Next time, join me on the Golden Shack podcast.